Everything okay up there?
The Monkey. No, not the monkey from Toy Story 3, but the Monkey horror film that just came out a couple days ago. Luckily, AMC was doing an early screening, so me and Mr. Minus were able to catch the movie a week early on the 12th. So join us as we review this horror flick together. And if you want to skip right to the spoiler segment, you can go right here to get right into the action. But if you haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend you do. Right off the bat, I gotta say, this movie is definitely worth the price of admission. So if you don't want to hear anything else, then take with that what you will and go watch it. Written and directed by Osgood Perkins, who also did Longlegs, which is another film I really enjoyed. But these two movies could not be further from each other in terms of style and tone. Longlegs took you on more of a 90s detective thriller adventure, more akin to the likes of Seven or Silence of the Lambs. Whereas The Monkey is a solid blend of horror and comedy that takes you on a very wild ride. The kills in this movie are very frequent, and also super creative. And boy, are they graphic. They do this thing where the first bit of the kill seems like something you've seen in other horror films, and then it just goes off the wall with the final blow. It was awesome. It always left an impact, and my whole theater couldn't help but react just about every kill. If you're a horror fan, you should find plenty of enjoyment in this movie, especially if you lean more towards horror comedies, because this movie did really well at both. But I'm now curious to know what exactly Mr. Minus thought of The Monkey, so by all means, take it away.
Comedy-wise, I will say this movie actually really landed with me for the most part. As Mr. Plus said, the movie is quite violent, so it may be a bit shocking to hear that, but I feel the violence was so over the top that it made it funny to watch. You're not exactly in Eli Roth territory when it comes down to it, but you can definitely see it from the Terrifier and Tarantino neighborhood you're in, so don't expect Green Inferno, really. Simple stuff like getting shot will outright explode characters, and just when you think you know how the death is gonna go, it surprises you with just how much further it takes it. With the graphic content, the humor was able to match it for the most part with a darker and more morbid sense of humor. There were a couple times, particularly near the end, where I felt the humor kind of got in the way, but it wasn't a consistent problem. Most modern horror comedies try to make it a lighthearted and silly type of adventure, and it doesn't mix well with the subject material or the tone of the movie. I'm not trying to be that guy, but it's a bit odd seeing characters make MCU-level quips despite the horrific situation they find themselves in. Y'all are gonna need therapy and you're making jokes. But this one understands the darker subject matter. I guess it would make sense that Osgood Perkins would understand how to properly do comedy, considering he started as Dorky David in Legally Blonde. Themes of death and an almost existential terror of what awaits us all are embedded within the story of the movie, but it also manages to simultaneously make it a movie about parenthood, focusing on the father and son dynamic between the protagonist and his child. Additionally, it's telling the story of two brothers who are at odds, but they share a common understanding of this toy from hell. It makes for an interesting family dynamic in the movie that I wasn't expecting, but it was oddly enough nice to watch. It doesn't spend too much time on the family drama, but it also doesn't feel shoehorned in. You get enough to care for the characters, and the movie knows when it's time to start collecting souls.
As Mr. Minus mentioned, the characters in the film were also pretty enjoyable to watch, even if the situations they are stuck in are pretty outlandish. This mostly has to do with how well the cast was able to get into the characters. Tatiana Maslany I did not expect to see in this movie, who I really enjoy, and even another actor near the beginning who makes a brief cameo that I also did not expect to be in this movie. I also have to give huge props to the actors who play our twin characters, both young and adult. What's wild is that it didn't occur to me that they were the same actors until the end of the movie, and even then I still thought the kids had to have been played by real twins. But no. Both Theo James and Christian Convery play two characters and do a really good job at portraying contrasting personalities. But this also shows off how well the editing was able to show off these twins played by one guy interacting with each other in scenes. When it comes to face replacement, VFX have gone a tremendous way at making it completely unnoticeable, as I heard the same effect was used in Sonic 3. I was also surprised at how terrifying the monkey toy itself was. Whenever it was on screen, it brought with it a looming presence of fear and dread, which it's so cool it was able to do that alongside making the comedic moments really funny for the most part. It isn't like that toy monkey isn't scary looking enough already, but this movie goes the extra mile and gives it facial features that look eerily human. Whenever the monkey does its evil grin, I shudder a bit inside. And throughout the movie, that intense fear around the monkey is only heightened by the movie's excellent use of scene composition to really sell that feeling. An interesting fun fact is that in the original Stephen King story, the monkey was equipped with symbols in each hand, like the Toy Story 3 monkey. However, our Lord and Savior, Mr. Mouse, decided that they wanted to copyright that monkey toy design. So now in the horror movie, he has a drum and his little drumstick. And I gotta be honest, I think this change worked in its favor. Luckily, we have Toy Story 3 we can look at to see just how frightening the symbols were. But needless to say, we all know they were terrifying. But it being a drum in this movie makes the intensity that much greater. Instead of rapidly clasping cymbals, we have a drum beat that gets faster and faster over time, and you're just waiting for it to abruptly come to a stop. But at the same time, you know what happens once the monkey has stopped hitting his drum. However, like Mr. Minus said, there were a few comedic moments that I thought went on for a little too long, and it felt like the jokes started to get a bit less creative and more like your generic MCU joke. But other than those specific scenes, I thought the comedy scenes and the horror scenes both succeeded at making me laugh out loud, while also tensing up in my seat.
It should go without saying, but the movie is indeed based on the Stephen King short story known as The Monkey, which was found in the Skeleton Crew book that King wrote way before my time. Obviously, like any adaptation, it has made adjustments from stuff like names and content, but it manages to capture the concept and the spirit of the story well. Not every event that happened in the book was portrayed in the movie, so if you're looking for a beat-by-beat adaptation, unfortunately, this isn't going to be your thing. I will say, however, the movie managed to actually be darker than the actual book, which is quite interesting. As we all know, Stephen King is seen as the king of horror by many, be it stories of clowns and kids doing weird stuff in the sewers, to stuff like The Shining, but Stephen King manages to always make an impact. Granted, the difference is this one is a lot more shocking in the way it presents itself due to the aforementioned violence shown on screen. Again, to the Stephen King faithful, this might not be your jam as the movie takes some of its own creative liberties and heightens the violence a lot more. But hey, the story is less than 50 pages, so...
As you can probably tell, me and Mr. Minus both enjoyed The Monkey a lot. It was truly a breath of fresh air, and I'm glad to see horror taking these unique strides again and not being afraid to take risks in how it's crafted. There was and still is a chance that a lot of people are not going to mesh with the comedy parts of this movie, and likely wish the movie just stuck to horror and left the comedy out. But done right, like I believe The Monkey was able to, it can create this really entertaining back and forth of being really scared during an effective tense scene, and then getting almost an instant relief once it's clear the movie has shifted over to a comedic tone for the next scene. If I'm laughing at most of the jokes, and also getting scared when the movie wants me to be, then I'd say The Monkey will likely already be up there in my top horror movies of 2025. Hell, maybe even in the last couple of years. But from this point on, me and Mr. Minus are going to get into a short little spoiler discussion for those of you who have already seen the movie and have been patiently waiting for us to get to the nitty-gritty. This won't be a play-by-play of the movie, but more so a recollection of some of our favorite kills and moments overall throughout the film, and some more clarification on specific scenes that held the movie back a little for us. But this is your final warning. Spoilers ahead. So right off the bat, when talking about spoilers, I feel like we should start with the moments that we didn't really find worked all that well comedically.
Yeah.
I know Mr. Minus has his own specific example that I definitely agree with.
Yeah, so for me, the one bit of comedy that didn't work, and as I mentioned earlier in the video, really, the fact that this movie really managed to hit the comedy really well made this one stick out like a sore thumb, because a lot of it was dark humor, and it was morbid throughout the movie, and then you get this one joke, and it's like, ugh. Basically, for those of you who haven't seen the movie, the other brother who's, like, his whole personality is that he's kind of a douche, and, you know, bit of like a, we'll just say a Chad.
He's the antagonist.
Yeah, he's like the antagonist, Chad, and shit like that. His whole thing is like he would do the fucking bully thing where he'd go to like give you a high five or a handshake, and then he'd like cut back and like, you know, adjust his hair or some shit like that, because, you know, he's that type of dude. But so yeah, that was like a thing he used to do back when he was a kid. So then at the very end, when they're like trying to reconcile, he goes to like, you know, take his hand to like show, yeah, we're good now, everything's all set. And then the brother, he does it twice. He does it one time, which I thought that was an okay joke. Like, it wasn't something I thought was particularly funny, but it's like, it's a good callback. It's in character. And then they go
the one time I thought was good.
Yeah, like one time it's all good. Like, I get it. He is supposed to be like kind of a Chad bitch. You know what I mean? And on top of that, like, maybe some people will laugh. And then the second time he did it, I was like, okay, they kind of ran the gag out a bit too much, because they go for it again, and then he does it one more time, and it's trying to play it off like it's awkward, you know, like he's just being awkward humor type stuff. And at that point, I felt like, okay, we're compromising a little bit of like the movie just to have a funny gag here, quote funny gag. So that was at least my moment. It didn't ruin the movie for me, and as I said, I feel like the majority of the humor worked in this movie. But that was the one scene where I just stopped and was like, guys, you were doing so well. Why are you doing this to us? You know what I mean?
I feel like I had two scenes that I thought comedically did not work for me, and they were mostly because they went on for too long, like the ending scene where if he had just done the hand gag once, it would have been good, but he had to do it twice, and that kind of killed it. But near the beginning, when we have our first funeral, I believe, which is a very funny scene because the guy at the top is basically
At the
just
altar
doing a comedy routine. Yeah. And it's really funny at first, but it does start to drag, and it gets to a point where I'm like, all right, I'm not finding this funny anymore.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. Like,
so it was
at
that
first,
scene and the
yeah.
ending. But those were really the only two moments. Maybe there was another moment near the end, like when the dad and the kid are in the car together, like right before the movie ends. I thought it was also dragging and needed to end before I was gonna start thinking negatively, but it did end up ending in a way that I liked, and so really those are the only complaints comedically.
Speaking of the ending on that end, so I will say, so again, I'm not gonna act like I'm the most like fucking Stephen King like aficionado here and stuff like that. I've read a couple of his like short stories. This one is not one of them, but I do remember because sorry guys, I did read this online. I just read a summary. Sorry guys, but the ending for the book, I know originally ended where, long story short, they buried the monkey. Not like buried him, but like they just kind of threw the monkey into this like lake or like a big body of water, and just like they tied rocks to it so that way it would sink to the bottom and stuff like that. But then the next day, or I guess shortly after or something like that, the main character reads in the paper that like a bunch of fish just straight up died after that, showcasing like, yeah, the monkey is still causing problems despite the fact that it's buried, you know what I mean? And I will say, like, I think the ending kind of mirrored that, because the ending is like straight up they just like, you just see an entire bus just get wiped the fuck out.
Yeah, in one big clean sweep, like 12 teenage cheerleaders just get their heads chopped off.
I actually will say, and call me effed up, I was actually thinking that when they were going across that intersection that they were going to get like plowed and ran over by a fucking like truck. Like, I thought that was gonna happen to them, and that like
Our main characters?
Yeah, I honestly thought it was going to end with just our main characters just getting fucking like steamrolled by like a truck or some shit, because I was like, well, this is that kind of movie, and on top of that, it's like all the dark shit you can imagine. It's like, yeah, it'd be kind of fitting that our characters just straight up fucking die in a horrific way, but I'm glad it didn't go that way. I'm happy it didn't go down that way, because again, I actually liked the characters this time, and I felt like it's probably a good thing that, you know, they kept them alive and stuff. But it was just in my head. I was like, yeah, they're at an intersection. I am a paranoid driver. I know what happens at these things. So, but yeah, it was good.
I definitely thought they were gonna die, and I would not have liked it. I was hoping that they weren't going to, so I'm glad they didn't. What I thought was that the bus, when the bus was going through, that the bus was gonna like spin out and tip over while all the heads are out the window, and you were just gonna see a splat come from under the road. But yeah, like you were saying, in the book it's a bunch of fish that get killed, but in the movie that monkey kills like the whole town of people. And it almost is like spiteful with it, because in the book he gets thrown into the water and then he just kills the surrounding fish. But if I remember correctly, in the movie, it was almost like a spiteful, I'm just going to start hitting the drum over and over again and just kill as many people as I want, just to like show. And I didn't understand what was happening at first. I thought the monkey was just heavily beating his drum, so I was waiting for it to stop and then kill one more person. But then when they looked outside and the whole city was falling apart, I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, that was where like the iconic shot of the fucking baby getting like lit on fire in the fucking carriage. Or, like,
Yeah, I was waiting for that scene.
Yeah,
like, how does that scene fit in this movie?
It was one of those things where like in the movie, in like the trailer, it's played up for like the horror bit. But I'm not gonna lie, when I was watching it, I was kind of laughing. I was kind of like, yeah, I'm laughing at a kid getting lit on fire. There's something wrong with me, dude.
And speaking of laughing at kids getting set on fire, most of the kills in this movie, like we said, were hilarious. And if I had to pick a favorite kill, it was probably the guy that got trampled by 67 horses in his sleeping bag.
Yeah.
And after they unzipped it, they said it looked like cherry cobbler. And it's this awful sludge of just human paste.
Yeah. That was fucking... See, I feel like that scene was perfectly timed because it's like... Earlier, you see them, you know, they're trying to see, does the monkey actually cause death? And he's going like, no, don't test it. And then we just straight cut to a fucking funeral, like right there,
Yeah.
which is already
That,
like
like-
hilarious just on its own. And then you see, oh yeah, that dude got Red Dead Redemption horses all over his ass. Like,
Yeah,
oh,
and
boy.
it's so cool because you can tell like that difference like when you're in the horror scene, because the editing is obviously horror styled, slower, longer cuts. But then when you get to like a smash cut to a funeral, and then that whole scene is edited like a comedy, like that horse trampling scene is edited like it should be comedic, and
Yeah.
it is. It succeeded. It was very comedic. I don't know if you have any kills that you preferred over the horse, but
I mean, the horse was probably my favorite too, just because this is what I meant in like the earlier in the video where I was talking like about how it's just one of those things where you think you know how it's gonna go, and then the movie goes a lot further with it. Like, straight up in the opening, they do that as well. This is the one that they also do want to talk about where like the fucking monkey beats its drum, and then like the harpoon or like whatever, like the fucking spear just goes right through the owner. And I was thinking like, okay, yeah, that's it. Like, you know, it goes through his body and then he's gonna be bleeding and we're all supposed to scream and stuff. And then it retracted and all the intestines came out with him. And I was like, oh my god. And that was, I think, perfectly timed and executed, because it's like the movie's trying to let you know, yeah, you're walking into a much different movie. Like, you're not walking into an average horror movie. This is going to be a violent horror movie. And it's also letting you know the violence is also going to be like over the top and funny. Like, it's not going to be like I said earlier, where it's like Eli Roth, where it's like over the top and extremely like gut wrenching and hard to watch sometimes. But it's more so just like funny, like in the Terrifier way, where it's like, yeah, it's way over the top, but it's kind of funny and just how fucking crazy it goes. You know what I mean?
yeah. And what's perfect about the harpoon scene is that's our cameo actor that I did not expect to show up, Adam Scott.
Yeah, fucking.
He was only in it for the opening, but
yeah, that was the thing. Yeah, he was only in it for like the opening bit, which I was a little sad about. I remember seeing him and I was like, wait, oh my god, that's Adam Scott. That's the dude from fucking Severance. Like, I had to like do a double take. I was like squinting, and it was him. It was fucking him. I actually thought it was David Dastmalchian for a second. But like, because at this point it's just one of those things. I was like, yeah, David Dastmalchian just shows up in movies. Like, I don't even know he's in the movie half the time, and he'll just show up in it. You know what I mean? But it seems like,
yeah. And for those who don't know, Adam Scott played the son's character, which obviously isn't shown to you at the beginning, and kind of not hinted at later. You kind of just have to remember back to the beginning and be like, oh, that was probably the son.
There was also, like, I think too, I'm pretty sure you might have caught it too, but he's also like wearing that uniform that they found in the father's like fucking closet, I think is what I was gathering. Like, I don't know what it was, but like I saw like when they were looking at like the father's like clothing and stuff, I'm like 90% sure like the uniform, or like rather like the clothing that they saw in there, the outfit, that was like what Adam Scott's character was wearing. So it's one of those things where I was wondering, like, how did he end up in that situation? You know what I mean? But I do think it kind of does, like, it's a good I guess you could say wraparound or like I guess circular motion for the movie. I'm sorry if I don't have a proper term for it, guys, but I do feel like that's good because it does kind of touch on, like I said in the movie, it's all about like the father son, like that's the emotional core of the movie is like the evolution of this relationship between father and son, and since
Yeah, that's been
is,
strained.
yeah, exactly, and since that is the son growing up, it's kind of interesting that we start the movie with like the son is now grown up, but it's also kind of like a sign of like the father son thing. It's like when you try your best for your kid, sometimes you try to be better than your own father, but sometimes they just still end up in the exact same situation. Maybe they fare better than you did, but it's like, you know what I'm saying? Like I feel like it's an interesting like beat for the story and like the themes they were introducing of both family and like the father and son aspect of family and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
I mean, all the kills were great. We only really talked about the horse one in the beginning, but there's so many kills. I'm sure there was a montage where they were killing people, and I was like, this is amazing. The shotgun kill that split the lady in half was hilarious.
Yeah.
I loved the fence post when the lady
just ran out after she
through
fucking like had the
that
like,
lady
the
put her
lights too.
that stupid lady put her face right up to the flame, to the
Don't
burning
ever
gas
do that.
after she put rubbing alcohol all over it.
Yep.
That was the one moment where I was like, that is too stupid.
That's deserved.
Like,
That's just Darwinism at its finest.
You deserved that. You put rubbing alcohol on your face and then put it as close as you could to burning gas.
Yup. And her death again too is one of those things where it was over the top as fuck. Falls through the stairs, comes out covered in glass, and then all that other shit with like the fire and like getting impaled. It's like, god damn.
Because that was another kill where I was like, all right, she's on fire. This is more average to a horror movie, and then her face goes right through that fucking mailbox sign. What the fuck?
The fucking bowling ball death too was pretty funny as well. Like, I mean, it kind of
yeah, that was quick.
That was quick. I mean, on one hand, it kind of did suck because I was like, I kind of want to see him like, you know, redeem himself and like get better. But then when like the bowling ball took him out, it was also kind of like, I guess it was funny because it was sudden. And there's also the irony, because for those of you who just are watching the spoiler, you know, section, you don't care about the movie, or like you don't care for us talking about it, but earlier in the movie when they were like kids, it showed the protagonist was like really mad at his brother, so he asked for like the fucking monkey to kill his. No, he didn't like ask like he did ask the brother to kill him, and earlier on in the movie, he was thinking about like dropping a bowling ball on his face while he was asleep. So it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know how much the monkey is, like, I guess, sentient, or, like, how much it knows, or, like, the abilities it has to, like, you know, see shit, or know shit. But it's kind of interesting that the monkey was like, yeah, it straight up, like, chose to kill his brother all those years after asking it. And then it also shows, like, yeah, he's gonna use the same weapon that, like, the protagonist fucking, like, fantasized about him killing him with, you know what I'm saying? So it's like,
yeah,
I just thought that was kind of funny, like, but also pretty cool for the character, because it just shows like the monkey might know a lot more than you think, you know?
Yeah, but overall, other than that, as we've probably made it very clear, we really enjoyed The Monkey. And if you haven't seen it and for some reason decided to get it all spoiled, you should definitely still watch it, because our mere descriptions of the kills are not doing them justice. Like, it's still worth going out and seeing it.
There's still plenty more kills too. Like, we didn't talk about everything in terms of the kills, but there's a couple more out in the movie that you'll probably enjoy if you're like us and you got a twisted sense of humor and you don't mind watching just like innards become outwards, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I can safely say I definitely foresee this already being one of my top 2025 horror movies, even though it's only February. But this movie did so good that I can't even imagine like another horror movie doing what it did. Even in like the last couple of years, I can't. It's not like top 1 horror movie in the last couple of years, but it's definitely on top 10, if not top 5.
Hell yeah. We'll have to see how the rest of the year looks and all that, but I will agree this one's pretty good. Overall, I guess my final rating for this movie, it may seem a little low for some people, but I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. because I thought it was, again, we talked about how it's got an amazing level of violence. It's got an awesome sense of humor. And on top of that, I also do feel like its pacing was perfectly fine. I wasn't sitting here bored with the family drama, and it wasn't like watching a Saw movie where it's just like, all I'm here to see is just the blood and gore and violence. There's like an actual good story behind all of it. So at the end of the day, I will say that was what got me hooked on the movie. The violence, obviously is what I was staying for after a certain point, just because it was so fucking good. My only detractors were, like you said, where it was the comedy dragged every so often. I feel, since I'm pretty sure Osgood Perkins has found his, I guess, spot in movie making, which is scary shit, I feel, if he learns his lessons from The Monkey of, like, sometimes you just need to cut the humor off just a little bit, just like 5 seconds earlier, then he might get, like, it might very well go to like a 9 or even 10 if he has another movie with like this level of dark comedy attached to it. Because again, I didn't think a lot of the humor in this movie was cringe. Only a little bit of it was, and that was just because they dragged it out, not just because, like, the subject matter was cringy, so there's that.
Yeah, basically, like, exactly like what you said. I wanted to give this movie a 9 throughout the movie while watching it, but those comedic moments that dragged out a little long, and some other scenes that I kind of just felt didn't work as well as others that I didn't mention, work what pulled it back down to being an 8, which is still obviously, like, that's very above average for a movie. But
yeah, definitely.
Just those couple complaints and maybe just minor nitpicks bring it down to an 8 versus it being a 9 or even like a 10 even, because there were definitely some moments to where I thought this movie could reach the 10 out of 10, like maybe in the middle of the horse scene. I was like, this is 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I feel like 8 is a good number to give this movie, as it did really good at horror and comedy, but sometimes the comedy parts dragged on a little long and didn't hit as much as the stronger comedic moments that seemed more like they were working off of the horror moments. I feel like that's when the comedic moments worked the best. And when it tried just being comedy, like just solely relying on the joke being what makes you laugh, I think that's where it started to falter.
Yeah.
But most of the jokes are directly bouncing off of these horrible, gory situations, and that is where I think the movie shines its best.
Exactly. Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully you thought it was interesting to see us give our thoughts on The Monkey. I'm pretty sure, as you've gathered just throughout the video, we highly recommend it. So if you haven't seen the movie or you're planning on seeing the movie, please go watch it. Sorry we spoiled it for you, but we kept enough to... You'll still have a good time, because there's still some other deaths in there. But
oh yeah.
Yeah. Hope you enjoyed the video. Mr. Plus, you got anything else you want to say?
For those who decided to stick around and watch to the end of our movie review, you are one of the true ones, because I know that some of you only kind of want to look at the analog horrors, but sometimes movie reviews are stuff that are also interesting to go into, and we want to do more of them. So for those that are also down to check out our horror movie reviews, we love you very much.
We love you so fucking much. You are my Valentine this February. You got that? Alrighty. Well, hope you have a good day, everybody. Remember to like, subscribe, and join our Discord if you can. And yeah, we love all of you.